More updates on Major Hasan today. HIV medication reportedly found in his apartment. And, yes, you got it. Drum roll, please. You knew this was coming. Possible Pakistan ties are now being eyed. The whole thing just stinks to high heaven. And, of course, never waste a good crisis. Whether or not Major Hasan did the shooting, was involved in it, had accomplices that were let go in the shooting, whether or not he was a Manchurian candidate, whether or not he was programmed to kill, quote unquote, maybe we'll never know. He's talking, we're just not hearing a word that he's saying. You've got to make sure, and this is a guy that's going to be tried in military court, so they can completely control what we hear from this eyewitness, this so-called suspect. But isn't it convenient, even if none of that's true, isn't it convenient that all of a sudden he's tied to Pakistan and everybody's talking about how this is terrorist, whether you watch the liberal channel or the phony conservative channel or whatever you watch. I mean, they're all reading from the exact same script. We don't do that here. An Army psychiatrist accused of murdering 13 people in last week's Fort Hood massacre may have wired money to Pakistan before the shootings and apparently had HIV drugs and other prescription medications in his possession. Keeping in mind, this is the guy that kind of dropped this story. He was out in strip clubs a day or so before the attack. So really just repeating the exact same process that we saw from Muhammad Atta and the Flying Circus with their bucks cutters. And also what's interesting about this is he was wiring his money. This is how the story kind of goes, folks, that he was making, over a six-figure salary. He was living in a $300 a month apartment. He was living hand to mouth, and he was sending a lot of money to Pakistan. Whether or not we know that was to help the unfortunate or whether that was going to train Pakistani terrorists that we must now invade Pakistan to stop. Well, by the way, we've already done that. I don't know, but it seems to be kind of flip-flopped here. I do remember a certain case of a General Mahmoud who had wired money to Muhammad Atta, $100,000 at least, that we know about, before the 9/11 hijacking. So this is a case of reverse wiring here. And isn't it convenient? Reporters, including Fox News camera crews, were shown inside a sparse one-bedroom apartment of Major Nadal Malik Hasan, who survived, allegedly, the November 5th rampage. He's been talking to investigators since he woke up in the hospital. Again, we don't know what he's saying. He was charged today with 13 counts of premeditated murder. He will be tried, as I mentioned, inside a military tribunal in court, at least initially. All extra charges in civil court that might be attached by the families of the victims certainly are going to be bought off by a certain paymaster. A pay czar. Maybe Mr. Feinberg himself will be taking charge of this. Among the items reportedly found in his upstairs apartment, bottles of vitamins. Oh, man, he was taking vitamins. Anyone who takes vitamins could be a terrorist. Medication stuffed in a shoebox for which Hasan had obtained prescriptions, in some cases, that he had prescribed for himself. Combivir, a drug used to treat HIV, was in the stash, about a dozen pills left in the bottle. So said the Dallas Morning News. It had been given to Hasan in 2001 at Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, said the newspaper. Wasn't known why Hasan had the HIV medication or whether he was taking it. Again, keeping in mind, this is a guy that liked to frequent strip clubs. This was a devout Muslim who probably was going to prostitutes. Maybe even using intravenous drugs, potentially catching HIV. Or at least someone told him that he had HIV. Keep in mind how all that works. Prescription cough suppressants were also there. Anyone taking a cough suppressant is probably a terrorist. They found this all in a closed closet with a do not open sign taped to it. It was photographed in Hasan's unit in the Casa del Norte apartments. The manager there taped the closet door shut after inspecting it and letting the media in. The media, I guess, came in before the police. Is that what we're to understand? Also on hand were Israeli and Jordanian coins, a prayer rug, a psychiatric medicine manual, a green lockbox left in the kitchen sink, an empty paper shredder, and a DVD burner. Anyone who has a DVD burner in their house, probably a terrorist. That I'm looking at mine right now. Officials investigating the murders confiscated other possessions. We don't know what that is. Meanwhile, authorities said they're looking into whether Hasan was sending money to Pakistan. And if so, why? The Virginia-born soldier is son of a Palestinian immigrant, or both immigrants, raised in the United States, has some relatives living on the West Bank. Representative P.D. Hoekstra, Republican of Michigan, told the Morning News that sources outside the intelligence community have information about Hasan's possible ties to Pakistan, which is battling a large Islamicist insurgency movement. Hoekstra, the House Intelligence Committee ranking Republican, declined to identify the sources. They're unnamed sources. They're trying to follow up on it because they recognize that if there are communications, phone or money transfers with somebody in Pakistan, it just raises a whole other level of questions, he told the paper. He's sending money there. You see, no one's funding him. There's a big difference. Unlike, again, what happened in 9/11. Of course, if the 9/11 Commission was really looking for a smoking gun, it could have found it no further than looking at Lieutenant General Mahmoud Ahmad, the director of the Pakistani Inter-Services Intelligence, ISI, otherwise known as the CIA East. Early October 2001, Indian intelligence learned that Mahmoud was ordering flamboyant Saeed Sheikh, the convicted mastermind of the kidnapping and the killing of Wall Street journalist, allegedly Daniel Pearl, to wire $100,000 from Dubai to one of the hijackers, Muhammad Atta's 2 bank accounts in Florida. This according now to various sources. Mahmoud and his involvement in September 11th might be dismissed as only Indian propaganda, and that's what they always say. But Indian intelligence swears by it, and the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation has confirmed the entire story, the FBI. Indian intelligence even supplied Saeed's cellular phone numbers. Nobody has bothered to check to what really happened. We've been on the case. The November 11th Commission should have posed very specific questions about it to FBI Director Robert Mueller when he testified. In December 2002, Mr. Graham said that he was surprised at the evidence that there were foreign governments involved in facilitating the activities, at least some of the September 11th terrorists in the United States. Keeping in mind that Mr. Graham was also meeting with some of these people the morning of 9/11. Mahmoud could have been involved in the September 11th attacks. He's locked in with the usual suspects, our intelligence groups, and some of the top echelon people within the State Department. And that was never a big question. The reason I'm bringing it up, of course, certainly is because here's the problem with Major Hasan. He was wiring money to Pakistan. This is the case where Pakistan is wiring money to an alleged terrorist. Never investigated, but this, of course, has to be ridden like an old horse, like a broken-down old horse that can barely giddy up and go. Of course, ingrained in this entire story is Dick Armitage of Iran-Contra, the mentor of Colin Powell, who got out and made the case of why we needed to attack Iraq. Also, Pervez Musharraf. But no one ever looked into that. That never became news. And here you have the perfect opportunity to, well, if you wanted to, you can put these loose ends together, tie them together, and there you can actually have a real case to go to war with Pakistan or to justify the current war and the current bombings of women and children inside the Afghan border, the Pakistani borders. But no, that's going to be too messy because that leads to the usual suspects. Let's go ahead and pin this all on Hasan. This is now becoming a terrorist attack by Pakistan by way of him sending money over there. Nobody knows if he did this for real, if this isn't just more war propaganda, or if indeed somebody's talking about this, if they have some actual physical evidence that wasn't ginned up and manufactured. Isn't it always interesting how these people in any so-called terror investigation only investigate the things that benefit them? Don't follow the leads that actually clear up the case, that get to the truth of the matter. And if any of that ever leads back to our own intelligence agencies, well, then the trail goes dead. And if the trail doesn't go dead, then they kill it. As we often say in this program, dead men tell no tales. Hasan is alive. He's alive as long as he says exactly what he's supposed to say, plays the part of the patsy, as Timothy McVeigh did. Good soldiers, completely indoctrinated, take orders. In this case, we have no clue, no idea what kind of MK Ultra programs he might have been a part of. So yes, He's going to say what he has to say. He's going to say what he has to say. He's going to say what he has to say.